If you're all right with me handling the written, I'll go ahead and do that.
Go right ahead.
All right. It is July 8th, 2:39 p.m., and we are meeting as the Board of Equalization. In attendance are Commissioners Vilios and Duncan in person, and Commissioner Brooks is here via teleconference. We are going to hear appeal number 22-212, AIN 185372, and I will read the opening statement into the record. Idaho Code 63501 grants the Board of County Commissioners the right to sit as the Board of Equalization. The purpose of this hearing is to consider an appeal of the assessed value of the subject property. The assessor's value is presumed to be correct. Therefore, the burden of proof is on the appellant to provide a preponderance of evidence proving his or her case. The decision of the board will be based on equalization of market value, not on taxes. The board will review documentation provided by the appellant and hear testimony from the assessor prior to making a determination. Some of the information provided in the packet distributed by the assessor may contain copyrighted information. Further disclosures of this data is prohibited. Assessor staff, please introduce yourselves.
I'm Donna Brown, I'm commercial appraiser.
All right, is your microphone on?
That's red.
Yeah, push it.
Green.
I'm Donna
Assessor
Brown,
thank you.
commercial appraiser.
Terry Jensen, commercial appraiser.
All right, and you've both been sworn in today?
Yes.
Okay, so we will dispense with the oath, and I will now read the appellant's information into the record. The appellant's opinion of value is land at $800,000, improvements at $2,400,000, and total market value $3,200,000. Property appraisal dated August 30th, 21, completed by Valbridge Property Advisors for refinancing through Mountain West Bank. And then the pages are attached. And, okay, so there's comparisons listed inside the appraisal. And the appraisal is attached. And I will just read that the value conclusion was $3,200,000 as of August 18th, 2021. Assessor, please.
Yes, I've looked through the information that was provided, but I also called the appellant and asked for the full appraisal, which they provided for me, because a lot of the information they gave, I just couldn't grasp how they did it. So first of all, what was provided for the appellant, I did not make extra copies for because you already have them. As in the letter, this client for the assignment is Mountain West, and it's for a loan. So I don't know how that works, but sometimes they're not up to market value. It might be for a loan that might be a little lesser. On page II, there is a breakdown it's a summary of salient facts about the building. The office building, they say, has a gross building of $18,462. Then they give a net rentable at $15,672 square foot and $13,312 for usable. So I was a lot confused about that. I've got on my property 17,074 square foot, and we look at the outside measurement, we look at the whole building. So looking at that, when you're looking at the value conclusion as is, the 3.2 million, it's based on 15,672 square foot. So they're not really considering the whole building when they're looking at it that way. So that's where I really wanted to see it. Page III, and the weaknesses, they have weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. They say, while many tenants are long-term, several are leasing below market rent. I have to use market rent when I consider a value. So again, the 3.2 million is based on a smaller square foot, and that would be on their page 3 that they submitted. They also submitted a comparable adjustment grid, and I looked at it. I'm familiar with sales 6 and 7 are condominiums. They aren't even the same type of office building. A condominium may have not as much land. As number 7 is in Merritt Creek, they have less land than their building total is. So I'm not real sure you want to compare something that has a lot of land to it. Sale 6 is also 3 condominiums unit. They have a square footage of 12,000 for their net rentable, but the 3 units total together only add up to 7,224. So unless they're grabbing common area or what, these are platted square feet, I don't get the same amount there. And again, it's a different animal. Page 75, they had their calculation, and this is on the sales comparison after using those. They used 15,672 square feet. And the building's a lot bigger. So they're using their rents. In this first package I sent you, this is extra pages that they give.
Oh, I see, okay.
They
go ahead.
gave a breakdown of what that square footage is. They have 18,462. Then they removed all the stairs at 1,581 square foot. Well, you need the stairs to get into the upper area or what? You're still renting it, you're still paying for that area. Then they have a rentable square foot and a usable, so I was really confused by then. So they're taking and using a per square foot base compared on the comps at a rentable space of the total above grade. They aren't even considering the basement, although the basement is usable and rentable. So they just totally discounted that it has a basement by doing that. When they're looking at their comps, they use 12,000 square foot for a condo that has 7,224 if you're only looking at the rentable usable space, but they use the full 12,000. I'm looking for adjustments for that, and I did not see any made. So you're comparing apples and oranges on a sales comparison right off the bat. And they're, with the cost approach, they're coming in with a higher value of $3,380,000, but they don't want that value. So again, now I guess that was provided. So I don't know if I gave you this page or not, so maybe I won't talk about it. So looking at the pages that I got from them, I understood the square footage. Page 29, they're talking about vacancy rate for medical offices. On the right-hand column at the top is 1.2% vacancy for medical offices, and that was in the second quarter. This appraisal is dated for August of 2021. Our lien date is January 1st, 2022. So they're missing half a year of sales that occurred since then. Okay, on page 76, they provided income capitalization approach, and they gave the actuals for all the units. And they all are saying triple net. Well, we know triple net is that the
I'm
tenant.
sorry, I've lost the page. What page?
Okay, it's page 76 out of this packet.
76. Okay, I just heard 6, so that's where I got lost.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I skipped a lot of, these are the pages
Yes.
that bothered me the most, but I could have put a lot more in there.
Sure.
So they're looking at, most of them are triple net rates on there, with the exception of one is modified gross. When a tenant rents something as triple net, they're paying for everything. They're paying for all the utilities, the snow removal, all of it, including taxes. So this should be close to a triple, to the net operating income when you're done. So remember that number of 1551, because they said it was low because they're not at market rent. So the next page is 88. This is their calculation. So they have increased all of the units to $17, except for the one at $14.99. And the math doesn't add up for the total potential rental income. The $13,312 times $1,435, you don't get to $24,865. That just doesn't add up. None of these numbers add up. Then you've got expense reimbursement, so they're getting back the amounts for some of the expenses down here. including your real estate taxes, property insurance and all, that are at 31%. So they have added it back in and subtracted it back out is what they're doing. And then, of course, the reimbursement and the non-reimbursement expenses. So you come down here, total operating expenses, and then they have stabilizing net operating income, $12.86. So they're actually less by quite a bit for their triple net that they admit they're getting, but yet they're below market rent. That just didn't add up to me. So I also need to point out the potential gross income should include any unrented units, including a basement. They didn't include that area in there. They only included 13,312 square foot. Where's the rest of the building? It's not on there. So you can't get a potential gross without even including all the units that could be rented. Then they have a line right below it, less vacancy and collection at 5%. Well, I just showed you it's like more like 1.2, but they might have more because that basement, but it should be accounted in that because that's what's included in vacancy and collection. So, and then if you look at page 90, then again, they less discount for short-term rent loss on top of what they just did. I'm like, well, did they take it off 3 times? I'm not sure. They have a value of $3,195,000. So I just thought there were a lot of errors in that, trying to get to it. So now I'm going to ask you to look at my packet. Page 1 is the office building. It sits on Hanley. It's a nice office building. Very nice. I've been in it. There is a lot of hall and inside area. Okay, so page 2 shows the location of the building, and it's almost a double lot because they have so much ground they could probably split off one section of it. There's a lot of excess land. My value this year for 2022 is $3,620,776. It was a substantial increase from last year, but that's what happened after we reviewed sales of properties. I valued it on the cost approach, and that's included on page 4. Oh, and by the way, the appraisal didn't even consider the cost approach, and I kind of wondered, is it because they didn't have the total building? Or would they look at the stairs and the other parts of the building they didn't include in the income and cost? Maybe it would have been higher. They didn't include it, so I don't know. Page 5 shows maybe a breakout of some excess land, but even at that lot is big for that improvement. We look at a building ratio of 3 to 1, so we're going to take the land and times the building size by 3, and anything over that's going to be extra ground. So we're looking at page 6 is the income approach. There's the total square footage at 17,074 square foot. Your potential gross income would be at $19.32, $329,870. Okay, so then I used a vacancy of 3%, expenses at 30%. Their expenses were at 31%, but it included taxes. So actually, I'm really conservative at my amount of 30% from what they had. After you take off the taxes that they pay, you have a triple net rate of $11.78, which is lower than where they're at. But I have more square footage. If I were to look at that and compare that 201, well, this could be not right. I'm coming up with $12.83 if I did 15,672 like they did. But I see a different amount there, so I better double check. Nope, that is correct. 201,000 is after taxes because they pay for the taxes. So I have to come down to that. You divide that by 15,673, I'm at $12.83 if I looked at only the square footage that they considered rentable. So I'm still can prove the value with that. Here's a couple of sales that we had that are local with cap rates that occurred in 2020. 6.5 and 5.5, and I used 6.25 and then added the tax rate back into it, so it's about a 7% cap rate I used. We had some sales of some office buildings on page 8. And so first you'll see the subject property, and it's valued at $212 a square foot. And I thought, okay, well, it has 7-to-1 for the land to building ratio. That's including that extra land in there. We have 3 other sales. 2 of them have 7-to-1 ratios, so they're large lots for the building. The third sale has a 6-to-1 ratio, and our values, the time adjusted sale price, $296 a square foot, $334 a square foot, $407 a square foot, and we're valuing their property at $212 a square foot. I think that's more than fair. A couple of them, these are smaller buildings on Hess Street, but I don't think the 2 on Hess are nearly comparable at all as far as construction. They're just not nearly as nice as the Hanley property, the subject property. And the one on Wyoming's pretty nice. And I suppose it's got stairways and things that they would subtract as well, but that's the difference. If you look at your total rent per your total building size, you don't have to calculate all the parts that you think may or may not. Just you're looking at your potential income divided by the total. Different way to do it. She didn't adjust her comps that way, but she certainly adjusted the subject property, and I don't think that's a fair evaluation. So, again, it's an appraisal from earlier in the year for August of 2021. I don't think it captures what was going on for the value of January 1st, 2022. So I ask you uphold our value.
Questions for the assessor?
None?
Okay, so, and I think you hit on it right up front, Donna, is we don't understand what the assignment was for the commercial appraiser. And so when we get into questions of the basement, or for that matter, stairwells, sometimes it has to do with the assignment. I know, for example, that even in the residential world now, they're starting to get more stringent with regard to internal measurements. So I don't know whether that's happening in the commercial world. Maybe that's why the stairwells are absent. I don't know if that's the case. Can't explain. There's probably almost a 4,000 square foot difference when you include the basement. And so that's something to take into consideration as well. And again, with the comps are what they are. Whether, if they were measured the same, who knows? But once again, that harkens back to what you said early on. What were the assignment details? And so anyway, at this point, I would make a motion we enter into deliberations. Or we did.
No, not yet.
Motion.
We already were in deliberations. We weren't. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, Bill Brooks,
Aye.
Commissioner Duncan.
Aye.
Chairman Philios.
Aye. And I've already stated my case, so I guess you could say that was part of deliberations prematurely. Go right ahead, guys.
Sure. Well, unfortunately, the appraisal did not take into account the things that the assessor must take into account for an overall valuation. So I do not feel that the appellant provided a preponderance of evidence in this case.
Bill?
Well, I think there was a mismatch between what the appraiser used and what the appellant used. And what the appraiser uses is really what rules in this case. So I would move to uphold the appraiser's valuation.
You mean the assessors?
I'm sorry, the assessor.
Okay, thank you.
Second.
Bill Brooks,
Aye.
Commissioner Duncan.
Aye.
Chairman Philios.
Aye.
All right, appeal number 22-212, the assessor's value has been affirmed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The time is now 2:58.